It's been months since my mom, Angel, passed away, but some days it still crushes me like a weight I can't push off my chest. My name is Blake Shelton. I'm 27 years old, and I work as a freelance painter, scraping by with small commissions and the occasional art fair. Life's never been easy, but I've always found peace in my quiet routines and my colors. I loved my mom deeply, even if sometimes it felt like I lived in her shadow, or rather, in Margaret's spotlight. Margaret, my older sister, was the golden one. Married, living in a picture-perfect house with her arrogant husband George, always looking like she had it all together. She didn't just walk through life, she glided. Meanwhile, I was the one in the background, picking up the pieces and making sure nothing fell apart. I never wanted center stage, but sometimes I did wish I mattered more. Even when Mom was sick, Margaret somehow managed to twist everything in her favor. I remember the day we moved Mom into that little guest house behind Margaret's house. She'd been feeling weaker lately, and we all agreed she needed to be closer to one of us. Margaret offered, acting like she was doing the family some grand favor. "You're being so dramatic, Blake," Margaret scoffed as I helped Mom unpack boxes. "I'm giving her a roof over her head, aren't I?" I clenched my jaw, staying calm. "She's not a stranger, Margaret. She's our mother." Margaret rolled her eyes and leaned against the door frame like she was already bored. "That roof is a guest house no one's used in years. Plus she's paying rent. She's lucky to have me." "Lucky?" I repeated, almost laughing. "You mean lucky that I'm the one organizing her meds and cooking her meals while you take credit for playing landlord?" She shrugged and sauntered back toward her main house, leaving me standing there with my arms full and my heart heavy. It was always like that. Margaret doing the bare minimum, while I stretched myself thin just to keep everything running. Then the call came. The one we'd been dreading. I'd taken Mom in for a checkup after she'd been feeling more tired than usual. We were sitting together in the doctor's office when he gave us the news. Lymphoma. Advanced stage. 6 months to a year. My hands trembled as I held the phone to my ear later that day. "Margaret, it's bad. She has cancer," I said quietly. "It's lymphoma." There was a pause. And then, in the flattest tone I've ever heard from her, she said, "Well, that sucks. At least she has her little house here. That's something, right?" "That's all you have to say?" I whispered. "That sucks?" "She's dying, Margaret." "What do you want me to do?" she snapped. "Drop everything and become her personal nurse? I have a life too, Blake." "You could start by showing some basic compassion," I said. "Maybe take her to an appointment or sit with her once in a while." Margaret let out a loud sigh. "Look, I'm doing what I can. Don't make this about you." I hung up. There was no point. Margaret had always been the master of flipping the script, making herself the victim while stepping on everyone else. Not long after that, Mom's treatments began, and she grew more fragile. She couldn't manage her own bills or finances anymore. Since I was handling her day-to-day care, Margaret had volunteered to manage her bank account and bills. I didn't like it, but Mom trusted her, so I let it go. I told myself maybe, just maybe, Margaret will step up this time. One morning, Mom looked up at me from her spot on the sofa. She was bundled under her favorite floral quilt, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "Blake," she said gently, "could you go to the bank for me? I'm just worried about a few things. Groceries, prescriptions. I want to be sure I have enough." "Of course," I said, brushing her thinning hair back from her face. "I'll take care of it." I went straight to the bank that afternoon, still thinking everything would be fine. But when the teller handed me her account summary, I nearly dropped it. Almost everything was gone. Her savings, everything she'd built up, even after selling her car, gone. Then I saw the transaction. One massive withdrawal. The name on it? Margaret Bennett. My hands trembled. There had to be a mistake. She couldn't. But it was right there in black and white. I stumbled out of the bank, the cold air hitting me like a slap. I stood there for a second, gripping the paper, trying to breathe. Then I called her. "What's up?" she answered, cheerful, as if the last few months hadn't happened. "You took all of Mom's money," I said, my voice barely steady. Silence. Then she sighed. "It's not what you think. Her account is empty, Margaret. Empty. And your name is on the transaction. It's a loan, okay?" she snapped. "We needed the money for some repairs. I'm going to put it back." "Mom doesn't even know," she added. "And it's not like she needs it right now." I almost laughed, bitter, hollow. "You borrowed every last penny without asking her?" "She's sick, Margaret. That money isn't yours." "Don't be so dramatic," she said coldly. "I'll pay it back. I always planned to." "You're unbelievable," I said, my voice low with fury. "Mom asked me to check her balance because she was worried about buying groceries. Groceries, Margaret. And you took everything." "She doesn't need that stress," Margaret said. "And you won't tell her." Why not? I asked. Because it'll only upset her, she said. If you care about Mom, you'll let it go. I was speechless. She trusted me, Margaret continued. Not you, and now you're trying to make me the villain? I hung up. I couldn't listen to another word. I stood on that sidewalk, the world spinning, and all I could think was, what the hell do I do now? I couldn't tell Mom. It would break her heart. But I couldn't let Margaret get away with this either. I needed someone to talk to. So I called Laura, my best friend since college. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, Blake, what's wrong? Her voice was warm, familiar. I broke down and told her everything. By the time I finished, she was quiet, too quiet. She took everything? Laura asked finally. And expects you to stay quiet? She said she'd paid it back, I said, pacing the living room, that it's just a loan. That's not a loan, Blake, that's theft. And she's betting on you being too kind to call her out. I don't know what to do, I admitted. You need to stand your ground, Laura said firmly. Your mom needs that money. She's depending on you. I sat down, head in my hands. If I tell Mom, it'll crush her, and Margaret knows that. She's using it. She's manipulating you, Laura said. And your silence lets her keep doing it. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I felt trapped, completely stuck. And the worst part? I knew Laura was right. Ever since that phone call with Margaret, I'd been walking around like a shaken bottle, one twist away from bursting. Every time I looked at Mom, her frail hands flipping through medication lists, her voice trembling as she asked if we had enough for groceries, I felt a mix of guilt, rage, and helplessness. But Margaret? She was just Margaret. Showing up once a week with cheap supermarket flowers and a fake smile, acting like the doting daughter, acting like a hero. And George, her husband, he strutted around like he owned the place. He'd walk in with one bag of groceries and act like he was saving lives. The way he looked at me, like I was a disappointment, like I wasn't enough. I'd been swallowing that for years. But one afternoon I cracked. I'd just finished scrubbing the bathroom floor when I heard them laughing in the living room. Margaret's shrill giggle, George's smug chuckle. I stepped out and saw them sipping wine while Mom sat quietly on the couch, too tired to speak. That's when I snapped. Mom, I said, looking directly at her, did you know your bank account only has $11 left? Everything froze. Mom blinked in confusion. What? Margaret let out a tight laugh. Oh, Blake, always exaggerating. I'm not exaggerating, I said, voice shaking. I went to the bank. I saw the statement. A huge withdrawal. Your name, Margaret. You emptied her account. George stood up like he was about to scold me. Blake, don't come in here making accusations. I have proof, I said firmly. If Mom wants, I'll show her the papers. Mom looked between us, clearly overwhelmed. Margaret, she asked softly, did you take the money? Margaret gave a little laugh and dropped into a crouch beside Mom, like she was still a sweet girl. It wasn't like that, Mom. I just borrowed a bit for the house. Repairs. I was going to return it. I swear. You didn't tell me, Mom said weakly. You didn't even ask. I didn't want to stress you, Margaret said, laying it on thick. You've been so sick. I was trying to protect you. I felt bile rise in my throat. You were protecting yourself, I said. You're out shopping and drinking wine while Mom's worried about affording fruit. Margaret turned to me, eyes cold. You always make everything about you, like you're some kind of saint. I never claimed to be anything, I said. But I didn't steal from my dying mother. That word, steal, hung in the room like smoke. Margaret's smile cracked. She stood up. I'll fix it, she said. I'll pay her back. It's not a big deal. But it was a big deal. The next few days, Mom barely spoke. Her appetite dropped. Her body started giving up. One evening, while I was spoon-feeding her broth, she grabbed my hand. You've always had a good heart, Blake, she whispered. But even good hearts have to say no sometimes. I nodded, choking back the tears. I hear you, Mom, I do. 1 week later, she passed in her sleep. The day of the funeral was overcast, like even the sky felt grief settling over us. People trickled into the church, offering hugs, weak smiles, and murmured condolences. I stood near the casket, numb, my suit collar itching, my heart feeling both hollow and heavy. Margaret arrived late, of course, wearing the most dramatic black dress I'd ever seen, complete with a wide-brimmed hat and heels far too high for a church service. She carried a bouquet that looked like it belonged at a royal wedding. George walked behind her like her shadow. When the service began, I tried not to watch her. But when the priest started reading Mom's will, I couldn't help it. He cleared his throat and said, Angel left the entirety of her remaining estate to her eldest daughter, Margaret Bennett. I couldn't move. Gasps rippled through the pews. Margaret sat up a little straighter, trying to appear humble, but I saw the smirk she was hiding. Then the priest said, However, everyone leaned forward. She also left behind a letter with instructions to read it aloud here today. He pulled out a sealed envelope, carefully opened it, and began to read. To Margaret, I see everything, even when you think I don't. I know about the money. I know you didn't ask. But more than that, I know why you did it. You've always believed love is something you can earn with gifts or hide behind distractions. But love isn't about what you can take. This inheritance isn't a reward, it's a responsibility. If you use it selfishly, then know this, you've already lost far more than money can buy. The room was dead silent. The priest continued. To my son Blake, I'm sorry I didn't say these things sooner. You were my peace, my comfort, the one who never asked for anything and still gave everything. I don't know how to thank you. So I'll leave you what matters, my love and my voice, finally saying what I should have said all along. I'm proud of you, always, Mom. By the time the letter ended, my cheeks were wet. Margaret stood abruptly and stormed out, George trailing behind her. I sat still, gripping the armrest of the pew, the letter echoing in my mind. She knew. She'd always known. And now, everyone else did too. In the days following the funeral, something inside me shifted. Grief was still there, yes, but now it shared space with something else. A sharp clarity, a quiet rage. Margaret thought she had won. She got the house, the savings, and whatever little was left after draining Mom's accounts behind her back. And when Mom passed, she got to play the grieving daughter in black, the one people whispered about with sympathy and admiration. But the letter changed things. People began talking. A few friends who had heard the reading reached out to me in private. I always thought something was off, one woman whispered to me after church. Your mom was proud of you, Blake, said another. Don't let her memory go to waste. I didn't plan on it. Not this time. First, I went to the bank. I wanted copies of every financial transaction Mom had authorized, or hadn't, over the last year. Margaret had claimed the money was a loan. I needed to see if Mom had actually signed anything. Spoiler, she hadn't. Every withdrawal Margaret made was either done via online access or with forged permission. Next, I contacted an estate attorney. He was an older gentleman who used to know my mom, and when I explained everything, his eyes narrowed. She signed over the entire estate, I said, but she also wrote that letter and she confided in me before she passed. There has to be something we can do. He nodded slowly. There might be. If we can prove undue influence or financial abuse of a vulnerable adult, the will could be challenged. That was all I needed to hear. I left his office that day with a fire in my chest and a folder of forms in my hand. Meanwhile, Margaret had gone back to pretending nothing had happened. She posted a glamorous photo from her backyard, Mom's old rose bushes blooming behind her, and captioned it, "Finding peace in the garden she loved." The comment section was full of hearts. I nearly threw my phone across the room. Then came the final straw. I got a call from Laura. You're not going to believe this, she said. Margaret's listing the guest house on Airbnb as a retreat cottage with family history. My blood ran cold. She was turning the place where Mom died, where we cared for her, cried with her, laughed with her, into a business. No, absolutely not. That night I drove to the house. I parked a few blocks away and walked in the dark, breathing in the crisp air, thinking of how many nights I'd sat outside with Mom during her final weeks, talking about constellations and silly memories. I reached the back gate and looked at the guest house. Lights were on. Through the window I could see Margaret setting up fake flowers on the nightstand. She looked calm, content, unbothered, until I knocked. She opened the door, clearly not expecting me. Her face shifted immediately, smile gone. What are you doing here? I'm here because I'm not letting you turn Mom's death into your side hustle, I said, stepping inside. Excuse me? She gasped. You lied to her, stole from her, and now you're profiting off the home she died in. You've got nerve, Margaret. Watch your tone, she said sharply. This is my property. Mom left it to me. She left you everything under false pretenses. She thought you'd take care of her, not rob her blind. I did take care of her, she snapped. I gave her a place to live. You gave her stress, and when she got sick, you disappeared. Margaret folded her arms. You can't prove anything. I pulled out my phone and showed her the documents, the withdrawal records, the bank timestamps, the lack of authorization. I've already spoken to a lawyer, I said. And if you don't return the funds you stole, I'll take you to court. You'll lose the house, the savings, maybe even your reputation. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. And by the way, I added, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for her. Because she didn't deserve what you did. She stared at me for a long time, and for a split second, I thought I saw something like guilt flash across her face. But then it vanished. You really think anyone will believe you over me? She sneered. You're the one who paints for a living and barely makes rent. You think the courts will take you seriously? I smiled. They already are. I turned and walked out. Weeks passed. And then Margaret cracked. She didn't want the legal heat. She didn't want the whispers growing louder, the social circle starting to freeze her out. One morning, I got a letter from her lawyer, settlement proposal. She'd return a portion of the money, enough to restore what she'd stolen, enough to make Mom's estate whole. She'd also agree to sign over the guest house as a memorial property, open for community hospice care. It wasn't revenge, it was justice. I accepted. When I told Laura, she hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. You did it, she whispered. No, I said, smiling through tears. Mom did. She gave me the courage to do what she couldn't. Later that month, we held a small dedication ceremony. We planted a new rose bush out front with a plaque that read, "For Angel, a mother whose love still blooms." And when I walked through the guest house, no longer a listing on Airbnb, no longer a symbol of betrayal, I felt peace, for the first time in a long time. A few months had passed since Margaret settled. The legal battle was over, but in many ways, the real healing had just begun. The house felt different now, quieter, not in a lonely way, but in a way that let me breathe again. The guest house, once a place of whispers and fading light, had become a sanctuary. We converted it into a cozy hospice retreat, just as Mom would have wanted. Volunteers from the community offered to help. People brought books, blankets, hand-knit shawls. A local nurse came in twice a week, free of charge. It was small, intimate, full of purpose. Sometimes I'd walk in and just sit for a while. The smell of lavender still clung to the curtains. Mom's favorite chair was still by the window. Her quilt, the one with faded blues and soft yellow stitching, stayed folded on the armrest. Every now and then I'd talk to her, tell her what was happening, sometimes just sit in silence, hoping she was listening. And somehow I always felt she was. One afternoon I got a call from George. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. "Hey," he said. His voice was quieter than I remembered, less arrogant. "What do you want?" I asked plainly. "Margaret wanted me to call," he said. "She's been going through it, losing some friends. People don't see her the same way anymore." "Maybe because they saw who she really is," I said. "She's not proud of what she did," he continued. "But she doesn't know how to fix it. She already did part of that by giving back what she took." "Yeah," George said, hesitating. "But I think she expected that to fix everything, like a magic reset button." I didn't say anything. "She was wondering," he added, "if you'd meet her, just to talk, maybe start fresh." I looked out the window. The garden was blooming again. Spring had brought new life. "I'll think about it," I said, and I meant it. I met Margaret 2 weeks later. We chose a small park in town, neutral ground. She showed up in jeans and a hoodie, not her usual designer style. No makeup, hair in a ponytail. She looked real, tired, human. She sat on the bench beside me and stared straight ahead. "Thanks for coming," she said. I gave a small nod. "I've been doing therapy," she said. "It's not magic, but it's a start." "That's good," I said. "Really?" Silence stretched between us. "I didn't come here expecting forgiveness," she added. "I just wanted you to know that I see it now. What I did, what I took from you, from Mom." I turned to her. "You didn't just take money, Margaret. You took time, trust, and you left me to carry everything while you painted yourself as the savior." She blinked hard. "I know. I wanted a sister," I said. "Not a rival, not someone I had to protect Mom from while pretending everything was fine." She wiped at her eyes. "I was jealous of you, you know. I always thought Mom loved you more." That stopped me cold. "Are you serious?" I asked. "You were the golden child." "She praised you quietly," Margaret said. "She talked about your paintings, your heart, how strong you were. I always felt like I had to perform just to be noticed." I didn't know what to say, because as much as I hated admitting it, I understood. We were both hurting, just in different directions. "She loved us both," I said finally. "Differently maybe, but fiercely." Margaret nodded. We sat there a while longer, not saying much, just breathing, sharing space, like siblings should have long ago. Before she left, she looked at me and said, "I hope one day we can be something again." I nodded. "I don't know what that something is yet," I said, "but I'm open to finding out." A year after Mom's passing, we held a memorial celebration in the garden behind the guest house. Friends and neighbors came, bringing stories and old photos. Laura helped me organize everything. Balloons, soft music, little cupcakes with edible flower petals. We planted a second rose bush next to the first, a white one this time. As I stood there with the small group gathered, I read aloud the words carved into the stone below the blooms. In loving memory of Angel, a mother, a teacher, a quiet warrior, you are the roots we grew from. I glanced up and saw Margaret standing near the back of the crowd. She didn't wave. She just stood with her hands folded, tears in her eyes. I gave her a small nod. That was enough, for now. These days life feels simpler. I still paint, more than before actually. People have started noticing my work, asking about commissions. A gallery reached out last week. Laura says she's not surprised at all. She says grief makes us brave, and healing makes us bold. She might be right. I still visit the guest house often. It's not just a hospice anymore. It's a place where people come to reflect, to cry, to remember. It's become a symbol, not of pain, but of transformation. And every time I walk in, I feel Mom. Not in a ghostly way. In the way the light comes through the curtains. In the smell of old books and warm tea. In the way the roses bloom no matter how harsh the winter before them was. Some people say family is everything. But I've learned that family isn't defined by blood or inheritance or forced gatherings. Family is who shows up when it matters. Family is who stays, quietly, consistently when it's hard. And sometimes, family is who you become when you refuse to let betrayal define you. I may not have had the perfect family, but I had a mother who saw me. And that was enough.